All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's the Inland Wetlands Agency, Town of Woodbridge. It is 7:31 PM. We have a few items on the agenda this evening. First one is 268 Newton Road, Patrick Madden Residential Site Development of Property. Mr. Shepherd, you're here for him.
For the record, it's Alan Shepard, professional engineer with the firm No Housekeeping, Chongqing, 415 Howell Avenue, Shelton, Connecticut. And what we have in front of you is a proposal to build a single-family house on the corner of Newton Road and Stanford Road. The site was previously used as a tennis court. Pat Madden's family and in-laws owned a lot of property around here, and over the years they sold out parcels. Pat's the only one left in the area. His wife passed away a couple of years ago, and the house they're in was too big for him. So he wanted to build a first-story master bedroom house on the parcel. It's a larger parcel, but it does have wetlands on it. So what we have is the house positioned sort of where the old tennis court was. Actually right on top of where the tennis court was. So we have the septic system approved by the health department. And you know, the grading is minimal. It sets up fairly nice for a single family house of this nature.
So it looks like the house is, what, 49 feet from the wetlands at the closest point?
Yes.
And beyond that, looks like a stone wall. Is that mowed area? Is it like in
It used
natural?
to be, now
or-
it's getting overgrown a little bit. They haven't played tennis actively out there in a while. So now, but there is a stone wall there, like an old historical stone wall. The tennis court is getting, you know, it's filled with leaves and stuff now. But it was a maintained area years ago. So yeah, we have nice protection of the stone wall. And we'll be removing all that asphalt from the tennis court.
Yeah. Is there a reason why the house isn't closer to Newton Road to get it a little bit further away from the wetlands? Or is there a topographical reason, or?
The setbacks, the building setbacks.
Okay, well,
And what is the setback?
Yeah,
Seventy-five.
we have the building setbacks, we have the house pretty close to the building setback line.
Oh, 76 feet.
76 feet instead of 75.
oh, I see, okay, yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't see where Newton Road comes in, so, okay.
Yeah, I don't give any relief for a corner lot. So.
Right, yeah. How large is the house gonna be?
The dimensions are on here. The back side of the house is 80 feet, and of course, you know, it's like 37. Because with a first floor master, the house footprint gets a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
But it's not a huge house for Woodbridge standards. I've seen bigger.
There are a few. A lot of wetlands on the property, huh?
Yeah, there's a lot of uplands, but there's a lot of wetlands. So basically, what we tried to do is use the area that was already developed and not go into other areas of the lot.
Anybody have any questions?
Obviously, you're gonna take out the stone wall that goes through the house.
What's that?
The stone wall that goes through the house is gonna be removed.
Yes, that's the one.
And where does the setback begin from Newton Road?
75 feet
From,
from the property line.
From the property.
So it's got two front yards, it's got 75 feet back from Newton, and then 75 feet back from Sanford.
Right, some towns give you relief on a corner lot, but Woodbridge has never done that, so. So I gotta meet the setback from both roads.
Yeah. Well, you need someplace to put the septic system anyway, so.
Yes, it helps for that.
Alright, I mean, it's, even though it's a huge lot, it's a tight lot in that regard, so, but- anybody else, Stephen?
Yeah, I have some concerns. Yeah, thank you. What's the square footage of the house?
I'm not sure of the square footage, but it's 80 by 37 with a jog in it.
So what's that math?
Well, it's,
About
I think it's
3,000
as much as
square feet.
3,200 if it was 40 feet wide, but there's a garage involved, so that takes out a quarter of the square footage, but it's still part of the footprint.
So our setback requirements are, according to regulations, 100 feet. You're gonna be at 41.9 feet. 41.6 feet with your porch.
Right.
So, that just, doesn't conform with our regulations. My question is, to some extent, can we go back to the drawing board and reorient the house so that we can pull it away from the wetlands?
Not possible.
What, did you say something, Josh?
I said it doesn't look like it's geometrically possible.
Yeah, I would, and actually I had it 50 feet, but the health department wanted a little bit more separated with the septic, so that's how we got to the 49,
So what physical limitations are there to reorienting the house to pull it away from the wetlands? What physical limitations are there at the property?
The septic system size, because I need a primary reserve. I would rather have the septic system by Stamford Road up, it flows away from the wetlands, that's a good spot for the thing. And we chose the house here, and I would like to say, this lot's been on and off the market for a while, and everybody that wanted to build a house there wanted the whole big thing, circular driveway and everything else like that, which doesn't fit, right? So that's why the owner decided to build his own house there. But the restriction that he has is that he wants a first floor bedroom. So that makes the floor plan a little bit larger. So I don't really have enough, I don't have a lot of room from Newton, I don't have a lot of room from Stanford.
Well-
And I'm no closer, there was a tennis court there before, so it was already disturbed before, so it's not like we're cutting new land in. It's
Okay.
already developed.
The tennis court's a bit of the tail wagging the dog here, so that's the existence of the tennis court or building on it really, is not driving the bus with respect to this application, because we're really talking about your distance to the wetlands, and that disturbance is really inconsequential. But I see the house is oriented north to south. Are you telling me it is not possible to orient the house in a more westerly direction?
We thought about that, but that makes the backyard towards the wetlands. So this orientation gives the backyard and back of the house parallel with the wetlands instead of into the wetlands.
What is the downside of having the backyard facing the wetlands?
You get encroachment sooner or later. I mean, it's hard, it's hard, if you give people a proper backyard, they're less likely to do encroachments.
Well, the owner of the property are any children planning to live at this property?
No,
So it
but,
was
you
an
know,
older
he left
person?
A little bit of the area to cook out and stuff like that.
Are you planning to keep that stone wall that's there?
Yeah,
there
we're
just
planning
as
to
a-
keep the stone wall there as a barrier.
Yeah, okay. Would they consider doing some kind of like split rail fence or something along the wetlands line just to delineate it?
My client's been in, this is his home, he looked around, and he couldn't find any housing that he would like to be better than here.
Just curious about one thing, tennis court on a lot, that's an accessory use without a principal use, how'd that ever happen, so?
Their family owned the property years ago before there was a lot of
Zoning, okay.
zoning
Just
scrutiny.
curious, so. Okay.
And,
So we're remedying a non-conformance by allowing
Yeah.
him to build a house on it then, yeah. So,
Pool's
And,
on the other
and
side.
they did have a house on the other side, right, the house next door, they used to own that.
oh,
so.
okay, all right. Again, that's just a distraction, but I'm just curious.
and to complicate matters, we have a porch off the end of the house at the wetland area, which encroaches another 9 feet or so. So you're not really, you're not really being, I wonder what kind of flexibility that, exists here to better conform with the regulations.
I'd have to talk to my client, this is his hopes and dreams and wishes and stuff, so, but I think he wanted to sit out and look at that side from his family room that he had there, so that was the reason. It would be elevated, the porch would be elevated, so, I guess I can talk to him about that.
So that's my only concern, is the way the property, it's a difficult property, but that doesn't mean that the resource has to suffer a consequence because of that, so that we could chisel a house into it. So that's why I'm working with, I'm trying to orient you to figure out a way to at least gain my favor with respect to the project. That would go a long way if there was something that could be done.
Yes, and I'll convey that back to my client. I don't really get into the floor plan of the thing, I do the site work stuff. So, but I hear what you're saying.
Thank you.
We should note that because the driveway would be coming in off of Newton, that's where the garage would be coming in, and if you turned it facing Sanford, you'd have a driveway coming across the septic system that isn't fondly looked at.
That's a design
You've
issue,
got
yeah.
49 feet between the closest part of the porch with a stone wall in between, and we don't use a 100-foot buffer, we regulate a 100-foot upland review area. So we don't have a buffer, we have a regulated area of 100 feet. So I'd just be curious, you're showing the footing drains, one of them going through the existing stone wall that you want to leave there?
Yes, well, we'd restore it, yes.
Okay, so you'd restore the
Yeah.
stone wall.
One thing you may want to, I'm not opposed to this, but you may want to, since you're removing a lot of stone wall, even if it's a rough stone wall created along that side of the property, to, again, rather than even a split rail fence, just to use that as a sort of a barrier toward the wetlands as an option too.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, my client's been here in town for many, many years. I'm sure he's willing to work with the board, get this resolved.
And as Alan said, there's been any number of people that have looked at this property, but they all wanted far more intense uses of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they were trying to look at putting something on the up side of the stream, which you can't do.
And that's a valid point that I hope that it resonates. What you see here today is like 10 years of people coming into my office, can we do this, can we do this, can we do this? And they hear, that's not advisable, So you don't always get to see the, I'd like to have issues, you know, but this is, I think, the owner developing himself is the right answer here. And we'll work with the board.
And the water course, is that always flowing, or is that going to Bladen's Brook, or?
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that would fall.
It's made, yeah, it's
Yeah.
not
It's-
ephemeral.
It
It's a-
doesn't overflow up onto this at all. I go
No.
by here like
All the time.
all the time because it's a pretty way to go. So the water course does flow, but I've never seen it outside its banks.
Yeah.
There-
All right, what's everybody else think?
You know, it's sort of the, like you said, the land was already disturbed with the,
Yeah, with an
nonconformity
asphalt
and
tennis
so-
court there, so
yeah,
it's not like it's pristine
Yeah.
woodland,
But, yeah, but we're gonna change the character, we're gonna change the use of the property to a house, and then, after this owner, we're gonna have a lawn, use, and, you know, activities and impacts, and so it's, I think we need to look past this year, next year, and the year after that.
it seems to me that the orientation, maybe it could be moved a little bit, but you have less chance of encroachment, as you said, with more open space behind it.
It
Yes,
really
it is.
can't be moved
Yeah,
because
let's let the
it's
engineer
smack up
figure that out.
against the front yard setback
Yeah,
from
setbacks.
Newton. And if you move it back in the position that it is towards the property that's next to it, it becomes even closer to
to
the
wetlands,
wetlands.
yeah.
I was just
So I mean,
thinking,
if you turn it sideways, then you've gotta have a garage that loads from Sanford.
So, you know, I think, I'd rather let the engineer and the owner figure out how to satisfy, some of the commission's concerns.
Just
so
mention
this is gonna have a basement?
Yeah.
What's that?
This will have a basement?
I can't hear you.
A
Basement?
basement?
That's why we have it set up like this, so it'll be, it won't be a proper basement per se, it'll be walk out towards the wetland side. Cause yeah, it just works with the land better.
It seems to me we're gonna have grass where we used to have asphalt, so the runoff is gonna be better contained than it used to be.
Yeah, that's true. And the tennis court was much closer to the wetlands in the back there than grass will be, so.
What's the current landscaping outside of the tennis court? Is there,
Right now, it's,
there's bushes, trees?
yeah, right now it's shrub and stuff like that, a lot of, birch trees grew up over the years. But it was grass, that area was grassed years ago.
No,
I don't understand the elevation change.
Okay.
The garage is at 382, and the backyard is at 382. But you just said that he would exit the house from a basement level?
The back, yeah, the garage is 382, the basement is
75?
375. So there's a drop down to the back. And the contour back here is 380.
Yep.
Well,
Where the tennis
382
court
goes right through the tennis
So
court.
it's a little bit into the ground there, but it's not much. So the basement was 375 and the
House is 384.
contour is 380.
5 feet, okay, so it's not like
But-
a full-size
It's not a full basement.
door that
Yeah.
he walks out of, you're saying, okay, it just might be a little,
Bulkhead or something.
sorry. My house, I do walk out of the basement from
Yes,
to the backyard, and it's much more change of elevation. Thank you.
So, just a final point from me is I'd feel a lot better if I saw some effort, if some effort was made to reorient the house, pull it away from the wetlands. I would be a lot more comfortable with my own approval of the project.
Yeah, and we'll see what we can do. I think I'm kind of locked in with the setbacks and stuff, but
Of course.
I could probably work with the client on the size of the house, or maybe we could have them talk to some house planners to minimize the side, or if we don't need the deck over there, or part of the deck over there. There's things that we can do, is worth the conversation. You're not gonna vote on it tonight, so I got a little time.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, I mean, we're not trying to be unreasonable, but I'm just, if there's something that you can do to, alleviate some of Stephen's concerns.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an unreasonable project, anyway, but it's, just,
No, and I don't like to get into the architect part of it, but I've been around for a while, and sometimes I can make suggestions.
yeah.
Thank you.
All right, then unless somebody else has questions, we'll continue this until next month.
I agree.
Do you wanna take a site visit at all, or you don't?
With the snow on the ground and that, now, if people wanna go around individually and just
I
take
mean,
a
if you
look.
drive by it, you'll
Yeah,
see
we'll
it.
see, yeah.
Yes.
It's obvious where the tennis court is.
Yeah, and location is, you pace out 75 feet each way and then you're at the house, basically, so.
Yeah. If anything, it would be after the.
Thank you. Good job.
Yeah. All right, Alan, thank you.
Are you related to the Shepherds that were the farmers on,
We're all related in Connecticut one way or another.
was
So
that you?
You call the road names, and that's my family.
Okay, yeah. I remember Old Man Shepherd at the farm on 69 there.
Yeah, they all came out of Milford, like a lot of families did. And,
He was a hockey player. He went to Brown.
well, they were distantly related, but they all started from the same area. And because I do, development, I always like to look at the road names and the families and stuff like that. And, it's kinda neat when I can, you tell me a name and I can know the area of town that they come from. So,
Thank you again.
All right, thanks, Alan. All right, so that one's continued till
Thank
next
you, Bob.
month. Next time on the agenda, Samantha Hicks, 26 Rimmon Road, installation of 12 by 12 storage shed. I'll just come on up.
Hello. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good.
So, looks like you just looking to put a storage shed on some gravel, right? Have you been out there,
Yes.
Chris?
I drove by, it's already a grassed area.
It's grass. We plan to put gravel down instead of having it on the grass, just
Yeah,
so
you
it
don't
has
want
like
that on
a
grass. But
little
it's in an
foundation.
existing grassed
Lawn.
area, so there's no
Yeah.
clearing that needs
Right.
to be done.
It's one of these prefab sheds that they just deliver, is that what you're planning, or are you
They
building something? or-
they construct it on site, but yeah, it's
Oh,
a
they do?
kit. It's a
Okay.
kit. It has a door on two sides. It has to be. I mean, we have a fence already, so you probably
Yeah.
saw that. It has to be at least 3 feet off the fence, so it's not. I mean, the fence has got to be. I mean, the fence is straight. The creek is obviously not, but the fence is like at least 8 to 10 feet off the creek, and it's not even it's not the highest area of our property on that side. Our driveway kind of slopes down, but it's not an area that like collects water or anything and stays dry there. I just don't want to put the wood right onto the grass.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't, to be honest with you, this sounds like something Chris could just deal with based on site conditions, unless somebody has some thoughts as to.
Well, I do, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. What this hash mark, this is the creek you referred to?
The hash mark,
Well, yeah,
the long one.
yeah,
Yes.
okay, the checkered line.
Yes.
So that's a creek.
That's
All right. And what's the distance? There's no measurements. What's the distance from the shed to the creek?
So yeah, that's what I was just saying. I mean, there's not a shed there yet, so we
Yep.
have room to work with. We have a fence that's not on this map.
Where's that?
That's again, it depends where you're at in the creek because the creek is on a curve in that part of our yard. but the fence is at least, it's no closer than 8 feet to the creek in that corner of the fence line. So the shed would go the furthest from the creek as far as our yard, the fenced in area of our yard goes. The further away you get from the area where we want to put the shed, the closer you get to the creek. I mean, I could measure it and submit that to Chris. I mean, I can.
My concern, this is not a big project, it's not a huge concern to the commission. But, a storage shed means machinery, oil, gasoline. We have it an unknown distance from a creek, so that's my concern.
Yeah, I don't know necessarily if we're gonna keep gasoline or anything in there. I mean, that could probably stay in the garage, but the equipment will go in, sure. I mean, and whatever's in the tank, I suppose. But it's not, the area it's on is level. It doesn't, our property doesn't slope towards the creek until you get outside of our fence line. If that makes sense, so.
So that's my concern, I guess, is that if we're gonna put the shed in proximity to the creek, there should be some prohibition on keeping petroleum products in it, and to whatever extent, I guess, you could keep it away from, if you could pull it farther back, that would be best, and perhaps that's something you could work with our enforcement officer on. So that's my concern, I guess, is what's gonna be stored in there, so close to the creek. So if we
Yeah, I
could
mean,
address
yeah,
those two things, that would.
there would definitely be lawn equipment in it. That's, what it's for.
That's the
I mean,
purpose,
we have a small lawn tractor and then rakes and shovels.
So I'd just like to see the shed pulled back from the creek as much as possible.
Okay, I mean, the fence, so you can see where the driveway is. We have a fence. I mean, the fence goes right along our, that bottom part of the driveway there. Starting, if you can see, there's kind of a little like bubble in the driveway at the bottom there. So the fence goes to the corner of that. It doesn't go all the way up to the road. So I can't go any closer than the space we need to open, like, the double gate in the fence there. So however wide that swings, it's not a huge area of our yard, and then I have to give the company that installs it at least 3 feet of space around. So it can't, it's gotta be at least 3 feet off the fence in any direction. I mean, we would prefer it not to be right up against the gate of the fence, just because it's a little funky, right? And we also have to be able to open the fence and then the doors of the shed. But I'm happy to walk around with Chris or
Yeah,
take measurements or.
I'll go and look.
So those are my concerns, Bob, and, if we could ameliorate them, now that
Yeah.
Chris is aware.
Yeah, well, Chris knows what Stephen's concerns are, and you can work together
Yeah,
to
I mean-
figure out the placement, so.
Yeah,
I
we,
have a question about this. You say you're gonna put stones underneath where the shed will rest. Do you have any idea of what are you gonna go into the ground and then?
No, we're
just
gonna
pile it on
border it. We're gonna border it with probably 4x4, about a 1/4 inch above the ground. So it'll be pretty flush with the ground, but we're only gonna dig down where we need to create the border to contain the gravel. But
Okay, that was the question.
yeah, no, I'm not digging down.
So when you put the gravel in, are you gonna have somebody vibrate it so that it stays put? Think about it. That's a good thing to do.
Maybe. I mean,
You put the stones down, somebody comes with a machine called a vibrator, it goes, and crushes them all down, so they don't move.
sounds. Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't have a problem. I'll
I said-
consider it. We're not gonna
I-
walk on it much, because it's only just under the shed. But yeah.
It'll make a
I'll look
difference.
into it.
he doesn't want the gravel tilting so your shed tilts on you.
Oh, I see.
He wants a firm base for your shed.
Thank you.
Yeah. The
Appreciate
shed will
that.
stay level longer.
Yeah. I know. We have. I know. Yeah. To be honest, I'm gonna default to my father on that because he knows
That's
way more
great.
about it than me.
That's
so
fine.
Or have him call Josh too. if you want.
he tends to over-engineer, so I'm sure it'll be something that compacts
That's an
and stays put.
oxymoron. You can't over-engineer.
That's an engineer talking. All right, then, I think, given, Stephen's concerns and Josh's suggestions, Chris has some thoughts, some direction as to what people are looking for here. Anybody else have any comments or questions
No.
on this? From what I remember, it's a fairly flat area to begin with, so it's not
Yeah.
like anything's gonna
Yeah, no, it's
slow.
flat.
Because we live just across the street, so. All right, then, do we have a motion to delegate this to Chris so that she
I'll
can
make a motion
proceed?
to delegate.
Second, somebody.
Stephen moved, Jack second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, okay. So what, rather than have to wait till next month for us to do something and approve it, you can work with Chris and she can issue a permit. You know, the two of you can work together and figure something out
So
there.
I have your email, so I'll email you, we'll figure out a time when I can just run by and
That sounds great.
whenever you're home.
Great. Yeah, maybe when you're not gonna slip on ice
Yeah, that would be
next
helpful.
week, yeah. Thank you.
Next week it's supposed to be back in the 50s and,
Yeah.
and rain, so.
All right, thank you.
Thank
So
you.
before it rains,
Okay. You know where I live.
I do know where
Thank you
you
very
are.
much.
Yep, have a good night. Okay, next item, let me see, hold on a second, let me get my agenda. Okay, next item on the agenda, Q-Pop. So, I got an email from somebody on Q-Pop who wanted some information as to what a piece of property might be able to be used for from a wetland standpoint. So Chris put it on the agenda. You know, the town owns the piece now, there's a lot of wetlands on it, but we don't have any mapping or flagging or anything like that, we just go with, you know, the town, you know, the state town mapping of the property. So I don't know, I just told her that we talk about it. Chris, do you want to sort of explain it a little bit better than I?
So this lot was created back in, I gave you a copy of the subdivision map, so it was created in 1952, which obviously antedates the Wetlands Act. So under the section of your regulations, which parrots what state statute says, in your regulations it's 4.1, people could have built on pre-existing lots that were before the Wetlands Act as of right until 1987. And after 1987, you have the ability to say, no, you can't build on something. So the two lots, there are two lots that go in from Johnson Road, and they're both pretty much all wet, and they're owned by the town. There's another lot that's behind it that had come in many years back for potential residential development, and that one also ended up getting given to the town because of the extent of wetlands on it. To the best of my knowledge, looking through our files, we don't have any wetland survey of this particular piece because it antedated the Wetlands Act. It was given to the town, nobody ever went to try to develop it. Coopop is partially looking at sites in town where there might be the viability of having housing built that was affordable. So they're looking at town-owned pieces that might have an opportunity to be developed. But given this is on a public water supply watershed, so under the zoning regulations, currently you would need 2 acres of buildable land to build a house on a public water supply watershed. Obviously, this antedates it, so it doesn't even have 2 acres of land. But based on all the mapping that we have, one of the maps that I gave you that I colored is from the older New Haven County Soil Survey. And on that particular survey, the RN stands for wetland soils. And then I've kind of drawn in where the roads are, so you can kind of figure out where this lot might be. Nicole had asked me earlier if I thought it was buildable, and I said, given the amount of wetlands that appears to be on it, I didn't see how a septic system and a house were gonna be able to be placed with having, you know, any kind of encroachment into the wetlands. So they're just looking for comment back from you to CUPOP, which is the Commission on Publicly Owned Properties, or use of publicly owned properties. There's a U in there somewhere. So unless we wanted to ship a soil scientist out there to confirm, because it's town-owned, exactly how much wetlands are out there,
There's no
just-
way we could really know for sure.
you would know for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But looking at the mapping, it just doesn't, because even the copy of the map that I gave you that's from the GIS online thing shows what supposedly is wetland soils, but that's not a specific survey. But you'll notice that it doesn't include where it looks like there may be the head of a small stream that maybe comes from a spring. I don't know, because I haven't walked the property. So,
I think that's what we need to do before before any real serious consideration can be done, because, I've been at this for 20 years or so in a regulatory capacity. It's difficult for me to superimpose what, I don't know how these two maps fit together. I don't know where the wetlands
one
are
of
in
them is
this.
just to show you that it was a subdivision from 1952. The other one was the only soils map that we had absent the online GIS mapping. So I'm trying to provide you with as much little information as we have at our hands based on it. So, I mean, if you wanted to engage a soil scientist, which would probably be the most definitive way to do it,
I'd rather walk it first, and then let's take it then let's go to the next step, I guess.
So this is the GIS, the
that's the
wetland,
GIS
you know,
mapping. Yeah,
imposed over it, okay.
but you can kind of see that it looks like there's a little bit of a
There's a
stream or something
Yeah.
that's not caught inside
Bob, what are you
that.
looking at? What is that?
It's on the,
Do I not have that?
yeah, no,
Yes,
you
you
should
do.
have it. Right.
It's
Look at
under,
the-
it's part of the state.
The regulation thing. Yeah. second
Okay.
page.
Thank you. I haven't seen this, so.
Yeah, so this is the GIS overlay for, if you click on the wetlands button on the
Oh, yeah,
GIS
no,
map.
I know how to get there. I just didn't know this was part of this, okay.
Yeah, it is. And, so it just, of the 1.83 acres, half of it at least is classified. And this is just the general overlay for wetlands, nothing specific, that's site specific, so, what you usually find is it's much worse than this,
Maybe there's some opportunity to
or
get
better
out.
than this, depending on your perspective, so, yeah.
Yes, maybe there's some opportunity for us to get out there when the snow melts when we get to 50 degrees, if we want to kind of keep this temporal.
Yeah, well, I think, the problem is, I have to get back to QPOP with something for them to go to Board of Selectmen with, so, I mean, we can probably give them this, but say it's not definitive as far as the buildable area, or whether it'll support a septic system, given the
Yeah.
extensive wetlands that are shown on the overlay.
Right.
And, if they want more information, we'd really need to have a soil scientist go out there and take a look at it, so.
And definitively flag
Yeah.
the wetlands.
Yeah.
All right, I'm comfortable with that approach.
Okay, all right, and because no sense of walking out there yet, if they want us to do more after we tell them this, then we could,
They want an answer faster, they want
something for next Monday.
right, they want
So-
something faster than we can deliver. Yeah, all right, so I like that response.
Okay, all
I
right,
have a question.
sure.
The parcel is 1.83 acres,
Whatever it shows on
Yeah.
that map, yeah.
and the requirement to
This
build a building.
antedated the zoning regulation
Yeah.
Okay, so
requirement
it's-
for.
It went to
it's
2
great.
acres, when
So this is
these are the
still
one.
It's a,
an adequate lot, if the wetlands weren't
Buildable.
there,
if the
big
wetlands weren't
enough.
there, it would be part of a subdivision and it
then
would be
probably
a
would already
buildable
have a
lot.
house.
As long as it could have a septic system and all that other good stuff.
But it's got something running right through it, yeah, I see.
I mean, it's not conforming as the size currently, but it's
It's-
pre-existing, so.
Right, okay,
And the
got it.
zoning regulations allow that it's a conforming lot because it's pre-existing.
Yeah.
But the wetlands are our concern.
The
And it
woods
looks
are a
pretty
big
serious.
concern.
Looks
Yeah,
pretty,
it looks, yeah.
looks
pretty
like a hard
wet.
lot.
Yeah. So, okay, then I'll draft something,
wanna
I'll send
draft
it to you,
something?
and then send it to you, and then you.
Okay,
tweak
and then
it.
I can
So,
include that.
Yeah,
I-
I'm thinking include this with it.
Yeah, and I'll do
say-
the color one. I think they kinda looked at that one anyway, but just to confirm.
Okay,
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
think even a little tiny house would work.
Right.
yeah,
But
well,
you still
again,
gotta have a septic for 2 bedrooms.
yeah,
That's the smallest septic you can do, and then you gotta have a reserve
Yeah,
and a well.
and it's all got to fit on the lot, so it's,
yeah.
okay. All right, so we'll put that one aside. Next time on the agenda, are you, Mr. Bagley, or, yeah, okay. Okay, so the other thing in your package, the other issue that's come up is the, pond at 28 Foxton Way. Actually, Chris and I were out there today taking a look at it too. Well, if you wanna come on up and,
Is that all the remaining materials we have for this now?
For,
The one the Begley we're talking about?
yeah, this is that
Big packet?
big packet.
And the rainfall packet too?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I wish to check.
So what the big packet is, as best as it's hard doing emails, because you get into threads
Yeah, I apologize.
and whatnot.
Apologize for all of
And
that.
then I tried to, as best as possible, insert pictures where they belonged, because when you print them from the email, you only get a little bit.
Pieces, yeah.
Pieces. So, just to give you a quick history, what happened back in December, was Connie.
Yes,
Call you
please.
Connie? Okay. Connie had emailed Jerry Shaw and Beth at that point because she was experiencing flooding in her backyard. There's a pond that's in her backyard. The primary part of the pond, if you look at that front page, kind of shows you an overview of the area. On this sheet, the pond is this blue area that's in here, and Connie lives in this house here, and then the holder of most of the pond is over here at 28 Foxton Way. So, just to give you a little background, the pond was an artificial pond in the sense that back when they did the Merritt Parkway, they excavated the area to use fill from this area when they were making the Merritt Parkway. So that's how it got created to begin with. So anyway, Connie had contacted Jerry, and then Jerry forwarded her email to me thinking that it was a wetlands concern because of the fact that there was an increase in water around the edges of the pond. In Connie's email, which is in there, she had mentioned that she thought it could possibly be from drainage work that the Regional Water Authority might have done. So I contacted John Triana from the Regional Water Authority, and John agreed to meet me out there, so we went out, we looked at it. The Regional Water Authority owns the parcel of land that directly abuts Connie's piece as well as Mr. Ratucci's piece, which is where the big pond is. So we walked that particular piece. There was no new drainage work that had been done by the Regional Water Authority. There are 2 drainage rights of way that go onto the Regional Water Authority property from catch basins that are in Foxton Way, part of the road drainage system. The one that's most to the north just feeds off on a stream system and goes over towards Racebrook Road, but the one that's closest to Connie's house actually ties into a storm piping system, and there's a big culvert on the Regional Water Authority property that water from the storm system feeds out of into the pond. The pond has some outlet through the north part. When John and I were walking it, we noticed that where the culvert was, there was a little bit of a dip. The culvert's kind of in a berm. There was a little bit of a dip, and it appeared to us that at some point in one of the heavier rainstorms that we've had, that the water must have risen high enough that it, in a sense, overflowed that low part in the berm and flowed north from there. You could clearly see it from the scour marks that were in the thing there. John said there's got to be another outlet, so we went around to the cul-de-sac, and that's when we saw that there was a pipe that went under the beginning of Mr. Ratucci's driveway. We didn't at that point go onto the property. We didn't have permission to go on his, so I did contact him. He allowed us to go back and go on it. And when we did, in the packet that I gave you, we found that there was a concrete drainage device that had been installed in the pond. And it's got a trash gate on top where the overflow would be if the pond rose, it would go in that way. Otherwise, there's an inlet on the side with another trash gate, letting the water go into a pipe that goes under the driveway and then heads over towards Racebrook. There's pictures in there that I took showing the debris that had settled on top of the trash gate, because apparently at some point the water was high enough that it floated on top of there. John, being a resource officer for the Regional Water Authority, had waders with him and a rake. So he donned his waders with his rake, and went out there and cleaned the excess off the top. There wasn't any water on the top at this point. It was probably 5 inches down from the top. And then he cleaned as best he could off to the side. At that point, when he did that, while the water was draining through the pipe, it clearly increased in velocity when he cleared to the side there. So at that point, I sent an email to Lou, and I CC'd Connie on it, and I said, you know, hurrah, we think we've solved the problem, although we did know when we were out there that it more than likely at some point would have stuff accumulate back on it again. And John had suggested that Mr. Ratucci could either get a plank to go out to this concrete device, and Lou said he would get waders perhaps. So, being the winter that we've had, that's not snow but rather rain, we then had another rain event after we'd been out there. We had snow and then we had rain. We had 4 inches of rain, and lo and behold, the pond fills up again. So at that point, Connie, online on the town website, you can raise a concern. It goes through Public Works, and so you submitted a thing, and Annette over in Public Works got it, so she gave it to the Public Works crew, and she also forwarded it to me. And so Adam Parsons from Public Works went out and looked at it. He saw that there was some more debris, I guess, on top of the grates and whatnot. But the determination was made that this is not something that's part of the stormwater system for the town, because it's exiting the pond underneath the driveway, and so it's not part of the town's stormwater system. I then came back and started pulling the files on the pond, and so I have the maps if you want to look at them. In 2011, Mr. Ratucci came before the commission, or the agency, and asked for a permit for pond restoration. And so he dredged the pond. He wanted to put a peninsula in it, but the commission didn't, or the agency denied that. But as part of that, that's when that concrete device with the 2 trash gates got installed. So,
Was that part of the project proposal, or that
no,
ended
that was
up?
part of the project proposal, and that's when it was installed. So, what it shows is that, okay, so then I also looked at the site plan development for Connie's piece, and on her, because she's not the original developer, on the original plans for that, there are contour lines that are shown, and it shows the pond being at elevation 225. And the top of this concrete device is shown at elevation 226. So,
It got higher.
well,
No,
it's
no,
just,
this is an overflow structure.
that was the overflow.
Right,
Not
so to
the
allow
wet.
1 extra foot of,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
overflow up to
Yeah,
there.
if it rose an extra foot, it would then go in,
In
as well
through
as
the
through the
top.
bottom, it would go in through the top.
So it would have 2 ways of getting into the pipe. So, you know, obviously it's very, you know, the contours that are around the lake are very close. There are pictures in there that show you, aside from the pictures where John's cleaning out the thing, all the other pictures Connie has taken of her property showing
the water.
where the water has extended up onto her property. As part of this, I also looked at the permit that was issued by the agency, as well as all the notes on the site plan. And for me as an enforcement officer, there was nothing that stated that the device, the drainage device, had to be maintained, although truthfully, the only maintenance that I can think of would be occasionally cleaning the trash gate, nor was there a note on the plan. So Connie's here to talk to you, and that's as much as I can. Did I do a good job?
You did a wonderful job, and I would really like to, if I may, thank Chris for, you know, bearing with my numerous emails and all the work she's put into this. It's really been, I grew up in Arizona. We would get flash floods occasionally, but so for me, trying to deal with things like wetlands, it's a totally different universe for me, and Chris has been wonderful, and I only reached out through the other complaint vehicle in Woodbridge, because I really wasn't sure who else might be available to look at it, because what was happening was Mr. Bertucci was not responding at all, and I felt that Chris had been very clear in her email to him showing the picture of the fellow from the Regional Water Authority, that the grate was filled with debris and the like and just needed to be cleared. Curiously, Mr. Bertucci's a contractor, so it's not as if he doesn't know how to either himself or hire someone, to get out there with a rake and some waders and clear something. If I were a lot younger and had permission to do it, I would, instead of taking up all of your time and taking up my time writing a bunch of emails and Chris's time, probably been out there and just done it myself. But I'm in a situation where he's saying, I have no responsibility for this. I'm looking at the pipes and water's coming out of them, ignoring the fact that, yes, there is water coming out of them, but at a very different speed and volume than obviously from what you directly observed when the fellow, I can't remember his name, was it John? What John found once he cleared it. And I think what happened, and Adam Parsons found this, was that when he came out after the second big storm, he had a picture, and I never got a copy of that picture, but he did take a picture, and it looked just like the first picture that was taken by John, by the regional water, by the Regional Water Authority, that again, the drain was all covered up with debris. And so clearly what had happened was, after another big storm, the water got high enough that again it clogged the drain, both on the top and most likely again on the sides. So, I again reached out and said, clearly it just needs to get cleared again. And Lou's response was saying that, well, you're really trying my patience, and that clearly it can't be these graded drains because it flooded again. And I said, well, it solved the problem after the first rain when it got cleared, and it was only after the second really heavy rain when it got really high again that we had the problem again. And my guess is if you just get it cleared the second time, unless we have another really big rain, it will also solve the problem. And at that point, when he just wrote me the email, Connie, you're trying my patience, I gave up trying to just be a good neighbor. And I don't want to make a federal case out of this, but I also, if you look at some of the pictures, you'll see I have a metal fence that surrounds my pool. That fence was there when I bought the property. I have not moved anything. I have not built anything. It's not like I have done anything other than there's some big trees at the edge of my yard that, because they were submerged in the pond after Lou did some of his dredging, were died. I went ahead and had them removed, and I paid to have all of the tree and the debris taken away. So I've tried to be a good neighbor and gone the extra mile, and there was one that was dead leaning against another, and I said, well, go ahead and take that one down and have it removed. And so I've been trying to, my father used to be a duck hunter and always loved ducks, and I love the fact we have ducks. So I was interested in the last person saying, I don't want to see the wetlands. We love to see the wetlands. We love to see we love seeing the geese come in like B-52s. And anyway, I just don't know what to do, and I should be quiet.
So one of the other things, just real quick, that I gave you is, interestingly enough, I gave him a printout from Noah, just to give you a hint how much rain we have had. So that the average rainfall in December and January is 4 inches. And in December, there is no station in Woodbridge. So I did Bethany, Seymour, and Ansonia, trying to triangulate around us. And the average was about 11 inches of rain in December, and we've already had 4 inches. So just saying, we've also had a lot of storm events too, which is not helping.
When did you buy the property? When did you move in there?
I think it was
Before 2011, because you signed off on the restoration permits.
Oh,
Right.
it was before 2011?
Right.
And when did this flooding start? Is it just
the flooding
last
actually
month?
was, I think it was at the end of December, beginning part of January. It was after the first really heavy rain that we had, where it really encroached.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it encroached before, but not to that degree. And what was great was that after that drain was cleared by the RWA fellow, it receded. And what's happened is that even before we had the little bit of snow we had, we went about a week or so without rain, it still has not significantly receded. And so it's not only very close to the fence on kind of where you have a picture, but also, other sides as well. So it's not draining at a fast rate.
So basically, it was okay for 12 years and now it's a problem? Is that what I understand?
But I don't know whether before those 12 years we ever had such a high rain that you
No,
had the increase in elevation
Yeah, that's not
to
the
cause what you
question. Yeah,
described you
So yeah, it
found
was good, it
in
seems.
terms of
Yeah.
getting.
So it worked for 12 years and now because of the heavy rain, it stopped working? Because I see the pictures, when the RWA guy was out there, clearing the top grade really didn't have any effect because the water level was below that at that point anyway. That's just for when it reaches the 226 elevation. I was out there today and the flow was pretty strong coming out of that pipe, even though there was still some debris on top of the structure. But the water wasn't high enough to reach the top of the structure today.
But my understanding
But
is
they're
that
sided
the
next-
side
they're
grade
sided
also
next.
cleared.
John also cleared
Cleared
the
the
side
sides,
grade.
yeah.
It's a V, it was tough to do because it's a V shape
Okay.
going
right.
in, but he did clear that too.
Mhm.
And, but when Bob and I were out there today, the velocity coming out the other side of the pipe
Strong.
was strong. And what was interesting is, and I took pictures, I think they may still be in the machine. There in the pond, you could see where it was open, where the water was pulling into the,
Structure?
to the structure, so there was enough
Yeah, there wasn't any ice in that area.
in that area and whatnot. But I also went back up today towards your house, but on the Regional Water Authority thing, and the height of the water coming out of the culvert that's on the water company property was higher than when John and I were out there on January 2nd.
Yeah, there was a lot of water on the north side of the pond where the water company property is on Foxton, where the
Yeah,
culvert
so
ends.
there's still quite a bit of water coming into the pond.
Bob?
Yeah.
So, seems to me that seems to me the problem can be solved, at least temporarily or permanently, by keeping that structure well maintained. Is that some principle that you could agree with?
Based on what I've been told by Chris and what John Parsons told me, yes, that
So if that is so, I believe the commission has the authority to order that structure be maintained, and I would invite us to take a look at the permit and see if there's some requirement that it be
Well,
maintained.
Chris looked at that.
I
and there
already
was
looked
nothing
at
in
that.
it.
There's
So
no-
in the
there's no-
permit and on the map, there's nothing that gives us that authority.
All right, so, but that doesn't deprive us of the authority. We can regulate the resource, and we can regulate structures in the resource, and I don't believe that just because there's no maintenance schedule in it back then, if we find it's an issue now, I believe the commission has the authority to.
But Stephen, I mean, it was okay for 11 years. And because I go around town and look at flooding everywhere. In my yard, the drainage areas along Johnson Road have had water in it to the top of the little
Swale.
berm things, the swale, for a week now since the last heavy rain.
So,
And-
and I agree. I'm not ignorant of the fact that we've had a wet season. So my point is I believe the authority has the commission to order the owner of that structure to maintain it for as long as these conditions exist, or in perpetuity, whatever is necessary. So that's my position on the matter. I believe you're not without relief, and I believe the commission has the authority to order that structure be properly maintained.
Well, go ahead, Jane.
I just want to have a question to understand how it works. This is the photo that shows the flooding, right? This is the area that flooded. Is this the structure here?
No,
It's-
the structure's on the other side of the pond.
That's Mrs. Bagley's property.
Oh, I thought that was the square
No,
concrete
it's-
thing.
You can't even see it in that picture. It's
Oh,
on the
okay.
far side.
It's just along or
It's
something.
hidden
Okay,
It's hidden behind
Or
some
patch of
logs.
ground, maybe.
I,
No, it's
I
very,
can't see it,
man-made.
It's
I don't
angular.
think I can see it from my property.
Okay, I
as
just
it-
wondered, because it looks like the water is flooded even though it's way below the level of this structure, whatever it is. But it's
Right,
not
but
the right
there's side,
structure.
there's
Okay.
side inlets there. It's not just the top the water comes in. The water comes in the
Well,
side.
right, but it's still, this is flooded.
Mhm.
This is not the drainage, whatever it's called. What is that?
I
Another
honestly
thing
don't, I honestly don't know
What it's
what
called.
that is or where it was. I guess from my point of view, and it was a long time since I took torts in law school, but at least my recollection of it is that aside from the fact that you wisely required as part of the permitting process that because he was changing it because he was worried about flooding of his driveway, that he was required to put in this new secondary drainage system. To me, inherent in requiring that it be put in is that if it's not at any point functioning properly, that he takes steps necessary. And to me, it seems like such a modest request. You hire someone, again, he's a contractor. It's not as if he doesn't know how to do it. And so in addition to that, I think that in terms of your inherent regulatory authority with respect to the wetlands, that again, if you suddenly were saying you need to spend $500,000 or $50,000 and build a new pipe system, but we're talking about maybe spending $100 to pay someone to go out with a rake and waders and clear it out.
But the problem is also that there's more water going in there than there should be, you know? So the issue where the culvert comes in from the town, if Chris is right, when she looked at the way the berm had scoured, that, not all that water used to come into the pond. It looks like some of it used to go around to the water authority property and off to the Racebrook, you know, to Racebrook, or, Wetbrook.
Into the
Wetlands, yeah. So it's not just, because the structure seemed to be working when we were there, it's just there's too much water. And there's too much water coming into the whole watershed there because where it comes off of Fox Den and Hunter's Ridge and, you know, Robin Road maybe, coming down the hill, it all gets diverted into that pond at this point. So I think that's a good part of the problem, to be honest with you.
I
And the
understand.
fact, and the fact that it was 11 years where this wasn't an issue and we've had these historic rains, I just, I don't know.
And I guess what,
The berm is on whose property? Oh, the
Water authority.
property.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, the other thing to look at, and Connie, you're welcome to come up here, because I don't know that you've seen this map.
okay, thank you.
This is Connie's property, and so what you'll note on the plan that Steven's looking at is that the elevation for the upper grade is at 226. So this is 226 coming across here, and when the house, in 1997, the edge of the pond was here. So here's 224, so it's between 224 and 226, so it was relatively 225, I would say is a good guess.
okay.
So you got, the height of that concrete structure gives about a foot of freeboard to get up to the 226. Both times I've been out there to look at it, it's been about 5 inches below there, so I would say that the pond is, you know, at least based on what this is showing, maybe still, you know, above where it normally would be by a couple inches. I mean, this is a fairly big pond, but on Connie's property, you know, this, if the water gets to the point of being up to the top of the grate on that device,
It has to
it's
go above that to
it-
flow.
yeah, it's coming at least up to here on Connie's property.
Yeah.
And he chose to alter the pre-existing natural state of the water to create this pond.
No, he
No,
didn't.
he didn't.
The pond was created.
To create the change in the way the water flowed.
No.
There was always a pipe underneath. For whatever reason, when this was done, this is the pond restoration plan. Okay, so this is the pond restoration plan.
Okay.
And so there was always a pipe, this 8-inch pipe that went under the driveway. This was not added when the pond was, no, it was not constructed by him. It existed in the thirties when they did the Merritt Parkway. They excavated this and then it filled in as a pond. So there was, when he constructed his house, this 8-inch pipe that goes underneath the driveway, so that at that point, I don't know if the pipe existed prior to him building the house or if it existed, but it shows on the as-built when the house was built. Wasn't part of the wetland permit, so I'm assuming it was there before the house was built. And so that's an 8-inch concrete pipe going underneath the driveway. And so for whatever reason, when they did this, they added in the structure with the
Well,
trash gates.
it's to, yeah, probably to maintain the water level of the
To
pond,
maintain
otherwise
the
it
water
could,
level.
there were times where this would go dry, you know,
Yeah.
so, or be like just a big puddle, so.
Yeah, so, when he went to restore the pond at that point, at least according to a soil biologist report, the pond was pretty filled in with vegetation and whatnot, so they were pulling material out to make it, more viable. Connie did mention that he's put an aerator, and she was concerned that that might stir the water up, but as far as I know with aerators, they're not that tough, that they're not that powerful, that it's more to keep oxygen flowing in there. And I gotta tell you, when we were out there cleaning this, we disturbed a great blue heron that was right there, and there were at least 6 red-hooded mergansers in the pond and a couple of pairs of mallards, so it was really.
They're loving, I'll tell you, the new water right by my fence.
Oh, they're
They're
over to
loving-
use.
Oh,
So
yeah,
we got
they're-
good pictures of
yeah,
them. You're
okay.
over here.
Oh, wherever I am, they're,
You're here.
okay, they're loving the new water, I'll tell you that much, and as I'm seeing them, I just get worried because where the water's getting so high, it's, my sump pumps are starting to, it's gonna be that I'm gonna get so flooded because the sump pumps are gonna be higher than the water level. Because the water level's gotten so high.
So, did something change to cause more water to flow in?
No.
Well, the berm overflowing.
Well, yeah,
No, the berm was releasing water to the north.
is it still doing that though, or is
No.
it, no?
No, the
Okay.
water's, this was when there
Oh.
must have been enough flooding in the pond that it went over the top of the berm, because the berm contains it this way.
Oh.
And so at some point, the height of the pond must have been high enough in a storm event that it overflowed going out the opposite
Out this
Oh, I'm
way.
sorry, I thought it,
I was probably
Yeah.
confused, Jim.
So there's a culvert in here, and this culvert's like that big, it's huge, that's feeding water this way. And today it was running, to me, higher than it was running when I was out there with John, which makes sense because we've had 11 inches in December and we just had another 4 a week ago. And the ground's saturated, so, anyways.
Now, one thing I don't understand.
so we've got a big culvert bringing water in
Yeah, up here,
and only a 8-inch pipe going out.
right.
And then it's weird though, because when they did the draining, there's a big culvert at the end of Lou's driveway, but the.
This, what's this thing?
Because-
This is a storm drain here,
Where,
but this
where is
goes,
the, could you tell me at the end of Lou's driveway where it intersects with, which one is the, Oxton Way, where's that?
This is the structure.
Is that the structure? Because the top pipe in that is about 5 feet higher than the water's ever been.
No, the water was in the 4 inches of, or 5 inches of it
Oh, it
today.
was today?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was when John and I were out
Oh,
there.
it was that one at the very end?
Yep.
Okay, because that's the first time that's ever happened. It's never been that high.
Well, it's designed to be that high because the water height is typically, according to this, because this remains wet at 224. So the water is a little bit higher back here. It's probably the 225. And at some point it must have been in a storm event 226.
226.
The driveway is raised,
Yeah,
at
Yeah,
least
it's
5 feet up.
yeah, the lines go right here.
Let me see.
So Foxton Way is,
This
Where
is the
Culver
cul-de-sac.
You're right.
So this is your neighbor,
so that's what Jeffers,
yep,
Yeah,
and
then-
then you're here,
okay.
even though it doesn't say
I
you're
got you.
in there.
Excuse me,
You don't want panic
Much
pictures.
better for maps and I.
See, here, even this map shows that the pond went this far into your property.
Okay, so this is the culvert that's on the Regional Water Authority property. It's big.
Huge, yeah. Mhm.
It's delivering water into the
It's
Feeding the pond.
Foxton Way,
Yeah, it's
the
up to the top.
culvert is like here, and Foxton Way is up here.
Okay, so it's out here somewhere, and Foxton Way curls around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
Connie's property is here, the Regional Water Authority property is here, and the culvert is here.
Okay.
And it's feeding water this way.
Under the road,
Yes,
under
It's
Foxton.
catching water, storm water from Foxton,
Right.
bringing it in this way.
It looks like a bridge.
No, that's the culvert, it's just a concrete thing that the culvert's in. It's not a bridge. It's only
it's
about
big
that
though.
way,
Mhm.
Oh,
where the pipe exits. Trust me, it's
Oh,
not.
well,
As soon as
I
the pipe
see.
doesn't
Oh, it's a
Mhm.
structure, not a bridge. Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
sorry.
Yeah,
So unfamiliar, my brain put it
that
together.
gives you a better perspective of it.
Yeah, I guess
So where's the
so.
graded one?
Over here.
Over here, way over here.
Yeah, that's why we can't see it from our house.
So today, that was, the grade's up here, and the water, is, it's a couple inches below, but
Yes.
But as you were saying, it's a V.
on the side,
Yeah, the
yeah,
side
on the
ones.
side, this
Mhm.
is the design of it. So, so this is the structure, and on the top up here, there's this grate, and then this is the side of it, and then this is the opening where the water flows in.
Okay, then when it says, I don't know what that means when it
A
says
sump.
2 foot something.
That's just another way for water to get in there.
Okay, so if it's blocked,
Well, this is the main feed in here. So this is when John was here, and you can see that it's only maybe 5 or 6 inches below where the water is to where he is.
and then is there further stuff underneath that?
No, this is the pond here.
Okay.
So what he did is at some point in one of the storm events, stuff floated on top, so he removed
Yeah, all
that.
of this is underwater.
This is all underwater,
Right.
and it's intended to be underwater, so that there's always flow going out from the pond.
And a sump really is the space that collects water.
Right.
Yeah.
It's supposed
hole.
to maintain the level of the pond.
Right.
When you get water as high as the top, it's been unable to drain the water at the rate that it's coming in. That's how it gets taller,
And
you know,
those
higher.
side lidlets are engineered
The
to
side ones are
maintain the
what's
level
supposed to
of the
maintain
pond.
the
Right.
pond,
And do the
dimension
sides,
size.
do the sides and the top need to be clear so that they can get into it so it can drain?
The
Yes.
only
The
two
side
openings
matters
are,
much more
this
than
is
the
an
top.
opening
Side's
on
more
a
than the top.
storm event. This is the upper release.
Okay,
And then, so that would be up here. If
Okay.
you're looking at this from down in the pond,
okay,
this is the top that you see here.
okay.
And then this is the opening further down in the water of this device that feeds into the pipe that exits on the other side of the drive.
So does that mean that if debris gets in,
There's a trash gate here.
great,
So when John and I initially went out, water was flowing. There must have been some material in here because when he removed it, it flowed faster.
right.
And this
But
feeds into the 8-inch pipe.
8-inch pipe. But today when Bob and I were out there, oops, wait a minute. You know, this is when I need a grandchild. Oh, this is the water flowing out
Oh,
of
look
the
at
other
that.
side of the pipe today. So it's flowing pretty quick.
Yeah, it's flowing, yeah.
You can, there we go. You can see the water flowing out. So it's got a pretty good velocity leaving.
That's more than I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, it was moving like that when we cleaned the side of the thing. So, I think part of the problem is that we've just had so much rain. And it's
Yeah.
inundated the pond, and it's inundated, unfortunately, your land too.
But not yours.
I grew up on the
Well,
property,
you know,
so
the problem
I know
is-
how far that used to go out to the
Yeah.
pond. Like, we used to ice skate on it, it would freeze over.
Yeah.
And like, the trees that were there basically underwater, maybe about that
On the
long.
Rotucci's property too, they
Yeah,
are, yeah.
it's, I mean, it's not just ours, the Teofilo's next door. So
Right.
Yeah, and Lou's got trees
Yeah.
underneath too.
Yeah, it's,
It's
and,
all around, it's an equal opportunity, let's drown the trees.
you know, if we could just get to the point where we don't have any rain, you know, we'll revisit the thing in a couple weeks and see whether it's gotten better or not, you know, and if not, then I don't know what we're gonna do, but, you know,
Well, you can
The
either
amount-
reduce the amount of flow into the pond, or you can increase the amount of flow out of it.
yeah, those are the two choices.
There's no other choices.
Yeah.
But the
I
engineer
don't think
makes
you're
it
gonna
simple.
reduce what's coming in unless you redo the whole storm drainage system.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I understand, I'm just,
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
I'm speaking hypothetically, those are, tautologically, that's what I'm
Yes,
doing.
you're speaking engineer speak.
In the meantime, though, it's not as if that pipe is at full capacity. It's true, there's a lot of water going out of it, but it's not, it didn't recede nearly as fast, it's not receding nearly as fast now as it was after this work was done. I think, Christopher, you can attest to that as well, that it receded faster.
Yeah, well,
So given, I mean, I'm happy to pay the $100. I mean, if I can get permission to, but I think it needs to come from you as the commission.
well, but we can't order somebody to change, to do something that they weren't required to do when they started the, you know, did the work and got the permit. That's the problem.
Well, that's
And the fact that it hasn't happened for 11 or 12 years until now, when we have this ridiculous amount of rain and water coming in, I mean, I think we just may be in an unusual situation right now.
With all due respect, I don't think that's what the law would say. The law says in general, a landowner has to take reasonable steps to keep surface water from, when they have undertaken to make changes.
They made the changes 12 years ago.
I don't think that there's a.
Well, there's no statutory obligation either for them to do that, so.
You granted a permit that let him make changes, including this drain, and I think it would be surprising, frankly, I think you would find it surprising if landowners could say, oh, because what you asked us to do, we put it in and now it failed, but it worked for the first couple of years, so you have no recourse to require us to maintain it. To me, that's inherent in your ongoing jurisdiction of what you're required by permits.
We're required to protect the wetlands, not to reduce the amount of water in the wetlands. But, go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, just, you know, you might consider taking your seat, I guess, so your comments will be on the record. Yeah, you might be more comfortable too, madam. You know, I do, you know, we may have a difference of opinion, Mr. Chairman. I believe that this commission retains the jurisdiction and the authority to require that structures that are installed are properly maintained. And therefore, I believe that there could come a time when this commission could order that structure be maintained for whatever period of time is necessary to ameliorate these concerns or restore the wetland to the plan that was contemplated 11 or 12 years ago. So I tend to agree with the complainant that this commission does have and retains jurisdiction to over the proper operation and maintenance of wetland structures. I just think that's axiomatic. Now, whether we go to that extent is another question, but from a legal standpoint, I believe that this commission is empowered to order structures to be properly maintained so that they function. Otherwise, what's the... It's an enigma if it doesn't work
Do
that
we
way.
tell the water authority then that it has to reduce the amount of water coming into the pond?
No, that's something we don't have jurisdiction over. We can't control.
We can't, well, I
But we
don't
could
agree with
control
that,
it.
but-
We could control a structure that was installed to make sure that we can order that be maintained. That's something we do have jurisdiction over and we can control. No, we can't control the rain. We can't control the water authorities allowing water to enter onto the property, but we do have an interest by statute to maintain the wetlands and water courses, and that includes maintaining structures that are in those wetlands and water courses.
I don't think our authority extends to flooding that's caused due to natural events.
But I think, but the point is, it's the structure. We can't control the rain, but that structure is supposed to properly function, and it apparently is not.
It's extraordinary amount of water.
But the structure is not functioning. We
Okay.
can't go past, we can't look past that.
I think we need an engineering report to.
We could go to that extent, but we do,
verify that.
but we have lay people who are, I mean, our own enforcement officer said that when those side inlets were cleared, the water flow was greater going out, and the presumption is maybe that'll correct the situation. But
And I
do
also
believe
said that when we
Excuse
were
me, let me just
out,
finish by saying, I do believe we do have the authority to order that
Okay,
structures
when
be
we were out there
maintained.
today, the water was coming out in full force.
But
the
that's-
water velocity was the same today as when we cleared it the other day.
I still, so,
So
let's
to me, it's
take this, let's take the specific facts out of the issue of whether or not we have the authority to order that
I wasn't
wetland structures be
discussing that. You
maintained.
were.
I believe we have the authority to regulate whether structures are properly maintained or not. If they're not functioning well because they're clogged, that's our jurisdiction. Whether it corrects the problem is another question. But if there's a structure in a wetland and it's not functioning because it's clogged, that's within our jurisdiction.
Not if we didn't retain the jurisdiction, in my mind.
We have, it's a structure that's in our regulated area. We don't have to say on the record on every single thing, we're retaining jurisdiction till.
We don't have authority over every natural event that occurs in the town.
Again,
that affects the
I'm
regulated
only talking
activity.
about the structure, Bob, and maintaining it. I'm not talking about how much water's coming in, we can't control that. What we can control, we have the authority to control, is structures that are not functioning. It's like ordering somebody from our own Department of Transport, our own town public works, to go and clean out an outfall that's been clogged because of debris. You know, we've done that before. So, point is I believe we do have the authority to ensure that structures in the wetlands are properly functioning. I'm going to start to repeat myself, so thank you.
Okay. Well, I personally think the situation will resolve itself in a week or two, you know, given the fact that the water was coming out, the rate was coming out, but,
It may.
and like, I still, you know, we've been through an extraordinary event in the last 60 days as far as the amount of rain that's come into the area. And I don't know, I just feel that with 11 or 12 years of things functioning properly, that that the situation will clear up. But go ahead.
Let me just expand the discussion a little bit. I mean, we're obviously coming into an era of increased storm intensities. Maybe this problem isn't going to go away right away, and maybe it'll go away for a year. But I believe the problem may arise again if we're taking our cues from global warming and the fact that we're getting wetter. Our storm events are getting wetter and more frequent.
Well, it was clear though that since the outflow, the emergency outflow on this is at 226, and the maps historically have shown that the pond goes to elevation 225. When your house was built, Bertucci's house was built, and you know all the maps are consistent with that. We're not at 226, otherwise the water would be on top of that structure. So therefore, maybe there's other reasons why, you know, I don't know how where your sump, you know, empties out, you know, where the water shouldn't be any higher than it's historically been, because otherwise the water would have been on top of that structure, because 225 has been the consistent measurement for the elevation of the pond over the course of the last 12 years. So there's something else going on here that's affecting it, other than the fact that there's a lot of water, but the water's not at a level where the structure is taking the water out. So therefore, you know, when their house was built, the pond was at 225. So it's something that makes sense.
So let's put aside. Let's put aside for the time being the matter of whether or not we have jurisdiction to control maintenance of structures and wetlands. Yeah, I mean, it's possible her house is experiencing some subsidence. I mean, that could happen.
Or something may have been done on that property that, reduced the level.
Cause the waters to get closer to the structure. I agree.
And there's just been a lot of water coming down from Foxton Way into this pond. And I'd like to see in a couple weeks what the situation is and whether it's gotten better. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Am I supposed to, do I need to push this to have it on?
No,
the-
it's
okay.
not, if it's red,
Um,
it's on.
I normally would be happy to wait a couple weeks, but for the fact that I think we are supposed to get more rain. And while I agree that water is coming out, I also am mindful of the fact that the water, for whatever reason, is currently much closer to my property than it has ever been. And to me, one thing that's happened with respect to land use in general, there's a general notion, I think, in terms of just being a good neighbor, of reasonableness. And so, as I think about this, and while I tend to agree as a matter of law, I think you're right in terms of your jurisdiction, that inherent in a requirement that someone, when someone asks to put a structure in a wetlands, the agency that's responsible for that wetlands, to me, would retain ongoing jurisdiction. Let's say that structure had as part of it required a motor, and let's say that motor its operation required certain fuel that was expected to last forever. And 20 years after it was installed, it turned out that it started putting out some toxic thing that caused birds to no longer come to the wetlands. Even though it didn't cause that to happen for the first 20 years, I think that you would argue, and I think win on the argument, that your jurisdiction to protect the wetlands includes a requirement to say to them they now have to totally replace, at whatever expense it is, the thing that they, under the permit, put in as part of what they asked to do as part of the permitting process. And the fact that it didn't fail for 20 years, I think, is irrelevant. The fact is that it's failed now. But I think in terms of what we're dealing with right now, before embarking on engineering studies and the like, my request right now is far more modest. And that is it possible for the agency to request of Mr. Bertucci that, and as I say, I'm willing to bear the cost of it, the $100 or whatever it would cost, but basically a request of him that he have someone clear that drain. And both it's responsibility for clearing all aspects of that drain, so we can at least do that easy experiment before we get more rain. And then at least we have a data point. Now,
Right.
I'm sorry.
Question, have you asked the owner of this property to have somebody come in and that you would pay for it?
I don't think I've mentioned that I would pay for it, but I have multiple times asked him to either do it or have someone do it, but I'm happy to add to
Well, I'm
that.
just saying, then you wouldn't need the agency at all until he says no. If he says yes, you get what you want.
I'm happy to do that. I frankly thought he would just find it insulting, frankly, since he has made it clear that he considers my assertion that this grate has anything to do with his responsibility or what he has on his property to be totally ridiculous.
Well, if you explain that you don't want to involve the wetlands agency, maybe that would give us some more.
No, I do
urgency
want
to
to
this.
involve the agency because I think it's a very,
Well, I'm saying as a part of a negotiation.
but I think it's an important function you play, and frankly, part of why I mean, first of all, I think he'll say no, but I'm happy to ask him, and I'm happy to say I'm happy to, pay
Interesting.
the price. But I don't want to set a precedent, frankly, and I think it's a dangerous precedent.
Well, one thought I have is, the pond is owned by 3 people, what you may wanna do with Ratucci's and the other neighbor is say, okay, we have maintenance responsibilities for this pond because we all own part of it. And maybe we should form as a group some kind of, plan, that we would share the cost of to maintain things to protect our properties. I mean, maybe that's an approach
Yeah.
that you should consider, and talk to them and the other neighbors about that.
Again, we discussed that with him, and we all agreed with his request to make these changes. I mean, I will
Well,
tell
yeah, they
you,
paid for it though, didn't they? Nobody else paid
we
for it.
offered to, and then he
Okay.
declined the offer from the Teophilus. I will tell you that there has been serious damage since he has done this, that the frogs in
Well,
the
I read
pond.
the emails too. He said that you cut down things and threw it in the pond too. But we don't need to get into that type
Well.
of stuff. But as a suggestion, why don't you approach the other two neighbors as a group, decide, here's how we want to maintain this pond, and we'll share the expense.
No, I'm sorry, with all due respect, but what I'm seeking to do right now, and given the manner in which I've been treated by Mr. Bertucci, I'm very good neighbors with the Teofilos. I thought I was good neighbors with Mr. Bertucci. I consider that an unreasonable request.
Okay.
And I'm happy to say to him that I came here today, explained it, and that at your suggestion but I think it's a mistake. I think it's a mistake, and I think what you're saying is exactly right. This is not the first time this is going to happen. But,
Well, that's why I'm saying you should think of a long-term plan rather
No,
than.
there was no need for
Like an instant solution,
no,
so-
there was no need for a long-term plan until he did what he did in 2011. And he did that on his own. And we really were happy, and all that it's done.
But don't
Frank-
you enjoy it just as much as they do?
No, because what's happened is since he did that, it stopped the water encroaching on his driveway, but now we have many, many fewer frogs, and now basically in the summertime, the reason why he did the aeration is covered by the dense, disgusting algae and other growth. So whereas it used to be nice, clear pond water, he described it as, oh, we're gonna have fish, we're gonna be out there on boats. It's become absolutely disgusting. And so one of the reasons why I thought the aeration might have changed it is he did aeration that moved that algae away from his house and basically pushed it towards my house and the Teofilo's house. So that's how he's been handling it. So if you actually were to and the Teofilos I think would back this up, but if you actually look at how that wetlands has altered, it has done exactly the opposite of what he said would be created. And with respect to my removing trees and the like, they were trees that had died, and I paid to have them, or had split in half or
Yeah,
major break.
no,
But
I'm
anyway,
sorry,
I just,
didn't mean to get off on a
No,
tangent into that,
happy-
because he said, she said, stuff doesn't get us anywhere. I was just trying to come up with a solution, a longer-term plan for you folks getting along and doing what you need to do to protect the pond and your properties.
well, I thought I was making of him a very easy request of, could you just clean the grate? When it turned out that after the grate was cleaned, after Chris did the hard work of getting the RWPA people out, and then this town did the work of sending out the foreman from Public Works and found it clogged again, that this should have been kind of a no-brainer. And so I frankly, as a neighbor, resent, what he's put me through to begin with. But, I don't want to have to involve a lawsuit against him. I do believe, to be honest, that this agency does bear responsibility for the wetlands, and there are instances where agencies have been called to task in terms of you've been negligent, in terms of how you've maintained areas for which you are responsible.
Okay, well, yeah,
And
I don't think you
I'm
need
not
to go
trying
there.
to I'm not trying to saber rattle, but I do think that's a
Okay,
factor
well-
to consider.
No, I don't think so at all. There was, in the permit, there was no response, there was no after
That's the
the
problem.
fact, pardon me?
That's
There was no maintenance obligations, imposed on the applicant when the permit was granted.
No, I'm not referring to that. I'm referring to the fact that now that it's been brought to the agency's attention.
No, wait a second. If somebody were destroying wetlands, that'd be one thing. I mean, he's actually, this whole problem is creating more wetlands, which is sort of ridiculous because it's also causing more problems. But,
Can I say something about it?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I believe the chairman has made an excellent suggestion on how to resolve this, and that is to try to form an organization, a group of you homeowners to agree to maintain that. And if you feel you can't relate to this other gentleman, you do have an ally in your other neighbor, maybe he could advocate on your behalf for this group gathering to agree to maintain and fund the maintenance of this. Certainly we can go back to 2011 and wonder why wasn't there some duty to maintain or an obligation for some kind of a maintenance plan every few months or so, something we find typical today in approvals of that nature. So I believe you would be well suited if you did take the chairman's advice and try to resolve this in a less punitive manner and without the agency's involvement, which no one can forecast how that's going to go. So the bottom line is, if everybody compromises and nobody's completely happy, maybe we have a workable agreement. But if it comes back to the agency, it could go one way or another. And if you'd like to control your destiny on the matter, do try to get along and try to form that alliance to fund and maintain that structure. And if you can't, then come back and maybe we will do this again.
I'll ask the Tiapolos, they just sold their business. I don't know whether they plan to continue to live in Woodbridge. Their family business, I think they're planning on moving to Florida, so I don't know whether they are.
Well, that's maybe all the more reason to form something that, will help, a new buyer of their house, because.
I don't know,
Well, no, I mean, but doing something like that can address not only the maintenance of the structure concerns, but, whether there should be an aerator in the pond, whether there should be 3 aerators in the pond, what you can do to, the Conservation Council, what's it, Southwest, whatever.
Southwest Conservation District.
Yeah, they have ideas as to how to maintain ponds and preserve ponds in a better way. So if you as a group can approach them, because they're free, you can fund cleaning out the grate if that's what needs to be done, or any other improvements in the pond that will make it more viable, that's probably something that's worth your while, it's a lot easier than, a million emails that are frustrating sometimes. So. It's just a suggestion.
So let me just,
And we'll revisit this in a couple weeks. Chris and I could go back out there in 10 days and see what happens. It's more likely snow than rain, on Friday at least, so we'll see what happens.
Towards the end of next week, there may be some rain.
Rain.
The other thing I can do, if I can get down there, is I can also try to measure the height of the water that's coming in from that large culvert, just to see, how much water is coming in.
Yeah. I
Because
don't
as I
know.
say, today it looked like it was higher than.
Can Public Works or RWA look at whether there's something they can do to divert some of the water coming into the pond, into the
Regional
public-
Water Authority has nothing to do with it. It's
Okay.
all road drainage from the town.
Okay. And
Nothing
there's
that's
there
there
are
was
easements there.
created by them. I think they got the property as part of, or they
Subdivision
purchased
approval.
it afterwards or something, so nothing that's on it is anything that they did, because there's no reason for them to do
Yeah.
it, they're just protecting their watership.
Yeah.
so just to make sure I understood what you just said, so you're saying that if in fact there's been an increase in water going into the pond,
Mhm.
that water is water that the town
The-
has caused to,
What's coming out of the pipe, to the best of my knowledge, is water that's collected through the storm drainage system that's in the road, but also maybe coming off the whole development of the area, because it all goes in there. When I looked at it, back on January 2nd, the depth of the water appeared to be shallower at that point than it was today. So I just thought very simply, I would take a ruler down there and stick it in and see, monitor the height of the
Gotcha.
water coming in.
so the water coming in, the body that has jurisdiction over that culvert, is that the Woodbridge Public Works Department?
That's part of the drainage system, as far as I can tell. and we can verify that with Warren Connors in the Public Works Department, because I believe they have mapping
Okay.
of all the storm drains and whatnot.
So-
it's not backing the water up, as you can see from the picture,
Right.
it's a very large pipe.
But if in fact more water's coming in, then another possible solution is if more water's coming in than was the case before, whether it was global warming or any other thing going on, perhaps the 8-inch pipe that was adequate before, or the grate or anything else, can I pay $100 to Public Works to have them clean the grate?
They don't-
It's not I don't think that they do. You would have to check with Warren Connors, because he's in charge of Public Works. I don't think that the town has the authority, even if you offer to pay to go clean, something on private property. But you can check with Warren. Warren's the director of
Because
Public
Adam
Works.
was trying to get hold, Alan Parsons was trying to get hold of Lou, and I don't think Lou ever would respond to him.
I don't
Ms.
know.
Ms. Bagley, you know, as we come toward the end of this
Yeah, of course.
proceeding on your matter,
Yeah.
I just want to say, I want you to be assured that the commission is not insensitive to your complaint, but I believe the chairman has proposed a solution that is more expeditious and more perpetual and more agreeable. So I think it would be best if you explored that approach where you unite to maintain that structure. And if that doesn't work, then, you know, I guess you're welcome to come back and we can do this again.
We'll put it on the agenda for next month, but Chris and I, in the meantime, will go down there once or twice just to, monitor the thing and if for some reason it gets worse, then we'll try to figure out what we can do to deal
Okay.
with it, so,
In the
okay?
interim, yeah.
And I'll immediately reach out to the Teofilos to say they just sold their family business, but I know that they're now back home, and they were obviously totally preoccupied in terms of that. And I will go ahead and offer to pay for clearage of the drain, and not say anything about the commission. I think the
I'm
agency.
afraid you'll get it cleared and it won't make a difference.
It may well, but all I can do is offer, so at least.
No, I mean, I'm just saying, it'll be clear, it'll be flowing as best it can.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're
That
saying
still
you
will
don't.
be inadequate
Oh,
to reduce the level because there's so much coming in.
it may well, and again,
Well,
all I
But at least
can,
you'll know it's not that.
tell you
yeah,
what,
all I can do is, I mean, I used to teach entrepreneurship at, Stanford, Harvard, and Yale, and it's an easy beta experiment, an easy exit, and so I'll just offer, and if he does, my guess is he won't respond,
Well-
but I'll just make that offer and I'll, in the meantime, try to get hold of the Teofilos and see if they have any interest in.
we can try to reach out to Ritucci's also and see if
That would be
there's-
great.
there's a way we could bring
I would
peace to
really
the
appreciate it
situation,
if you
so.
could help be a good,
Yeah.
an honest broker in this.
Well,
I'm not trying to be difficult,
And the other
I'm really
thing is,
not.
that I'm thinking is that if for some reason by next month, it's still a problem, and maybe we could have Jim Preddy look at it for,
Yeah.
to some degree. He's our consulting engineer,
Okay.
and see if he has any other ideas. I mean, we're not, well, except for Josh, we're not engineers, but
I'm retired.
we do try to help people solve their
Thank
problems
you.
in some ways, so we'll revisit the situation, we'll carry it over to next month on the agenda, and then we'll see how it stands
Thank you.
then.
I really appreciate your time
Okay.
and your help and also all the time I know that you've.
Oh, yeah, Christine's great, yeah, she is.
So, thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Have a good
Sorry for
evening.
taking so
Yep,
much time tonight.
yep, that's okay, that's all right. We all learn something through
Yeah.
these things, so.
You know, it's interesting, just
Chris,
as a
when you measure
footnote.
with your ruler, is the culvert circular, roughly in shape?
Oh, it's perfectly
Yeah.
round.
It's a square law. So when you go up, 1 inch, it's not just,
I'm just gonna measure the height of the water. You can
Same.
figure out how much.
okay.
Yeah, give him the numbers, the inches, and then he'll figure out the calculation on volume.
I
so.
don't do those things,
You
no.
know,
I
ju-
liked probability back in.
I just have another final point, a footnote,
sure,
not that the
sure.
matter's over yet, just as an academic point. You know, it's interesting, what may be happening out there is, there's a lot of subsurficial things that are going on. So, once these areas become flooded, and over time, the ground starts to move. And it's interesting to think that some of the subsoils on the the yard here have been washed away.
Sloughing off too.
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, so subsidence is a real concern, and it's possible that the backyard is actually sunken to the point where it's
It's
become
at
more.
226 now, instead
Right,
of
right.
228.
So that certainly is a consideration.
Yeah, no,
Well,
that's
it happens.
possible.
I mean, I had to put quite a few yards of soil in my backyard.
To rebuild it up?
It's subsidence. And there's no pond, there's no stream, it went down.
Sinkholes, it's, you know, Connecticut sinkholes, but
Yeah.
that happens.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, let's,
Onward.
It's on to Jean.
Okay.
okay, yes, next item on the agenda is minutes. Thank you, have a good evening. Yep.
Good night.
What'd you find?
Well, I have questions. Under,
Wait a minute, let me find them.
okay.
Somewhere in my back. Ah, there they are. Okay, go for it.
Right under new business, this is his address, 256 Newton Road, and the activity was at 236.
I'll double check.
Yeah,
I think it's 236.
okay. Right, yeah, there's.
I think his address, because he lives adjacent to this,
Yeah.
Right,
is
and-
256.
Right, so I couldn't, and I didn't have any, I couldn't find
And
my materials.
236 is the town-owned property.
Right, I didn't know whether his address goes in this
I'll
line,
double check
or-
it.
Or whether the address he's proposing to work on, whether.
I can make it
Property
very simple and
site
just have
is on that
it be the address of the actual work site.
Okay, and then in the second bullet,
Yeah?
I think there should be the word with between submitted and his,
Yes.
okay? And you can take, on the approval of minutes in the middle of the second page, there's an A that you're taking out, I think it just, under November 15th, it says, in the first bullet line, at the end, it says, with a typographical corrections.
So I think it was a typographical correction.
Okay, I could, yeah, I didn't even, that's all.
Okay.
Oh, actually, no, there was one other thing I didn't
No,
know for
I'm
sure.
sorry. You lost your
All right.
time.
At the top of the second page, it references all these sections.
Yes.
And I didn't have time to look it up. Are those, not 4.2 is the one that
Those are
allows
the
them
right
to do it?
sections. Section 4.4 is where you
You
make
got-
the ruling.
Okay,
And
good.
section 4.3B is what he falls under to allow you to make the ruling.
Okay. Except
It was a
it's-
test
it's
to see if I
referenced-
knew what we
Section
were talking.
4.2 is referenced on the first page.
He's making it under 4.2.
Okay.
Oh, just as a non-pro-tunc thing, Gene is seated for David tonight. Anyway,
Okay,
with those changes, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Jack moved, Stephen seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions?
Gene, you can never leave the commission.
I know, you're a lifer.
well, I kind of get a kick out of it.
Yeah,
So do I. I take no offense, because it's just like, you know, you gotta have that second pair of eyes. And sometimes when I
Sometimes
write
a
this
third.
stuff, I read it out loud, because then I catch stuff that when I'm reading it to myself, it sounds right, but then when I read what I actually wrote, no.
it happens to all of us.
Yeah.
Skipped over enforcement officer report, do we have
I
any
have
issues?
nothing else to tell.
You have nothing else, oh good. Okay, no site visits. If you wanna go out to Newton and Sanford, feel free. And anything else anybody wants to talk about? No, okay, do we have a motion to adjourn? It's 9:22.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Jack moved, second.
Josh?
Josh seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, thank you everybody, have a good evening.
Thank you. Happy New Year,
Time
everybody.
to go home
Yeah.
and have ice cream.
Walk carefully.